Next up in my conference tournament predictions, it's the Southeastern Conference, and although the SEC isn't as strong as it was last season, they still are projected to get double-digit teams into the NCAA tournament once again. But before we get into my predictions, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. But now, let's jump into it. And the first matchup in the first round is between LSU and Kentucky, and both of these teams have had disappointing seasons for their standards. LSU comes in as the last place team in the SEC at just 3-15 in conference play and below 500 on the season at 15-16. Then for Kentucky, the expectations were a lot higher for Mark Pope and the Wildcats, but they're just 19-12 on the year and 10-8 in the SEC. Both of these teams have lost multiple games heading into postseason play, and when they first matched up this season in their one and only matchup, it was Kentucky going on the road and getting a 1-point win against the Tigers. And looking at that game, LSU actually was able to do a lot of good things on offense, scoring 74 points, but weren't able to hold on to it at the end. They were leading for the majority of the game, though. For Kentucky, I think they're just going to have to lean on the talent that they have because they are obviously the more talented team in this one. But with the inconsistency that the Wildcats have shown this season, I do think there is a chance that LSU can win, but I'm expecting Kentucky to play a lot better than they did in their first matchup with LSU, and could see a guy like Denzel Aberdeen or Otega Owe really perform well and lead the Wildcats to the win. And in our next matchup, we have Mississippi State as the 13 seed going up against the Auburn Tigers as the 12 seed. And for Auburn, they're definitely gonna have to win this one and a few more, in my opinion, in order to make it into the NCAA tournament. So they're really gonna be motivated for the SEC postseason play. And in order to win this matchup, they're gonna have to stop a guy in Josh Hubbard for Mississippi State, which is something that they didn't do in their one and only matchup with the Bulldogs. In the first matchup, Josh Hubbard went off for 46 points, including 10 threes against the Tigers, and they just had no answer. For Auburn, they lean heavily on guys like Keyshawn Hall and Tahad Pettiford, and those guys are going to have to play great in order to keep up with what Josh Hubbard was able to do previously. I think in this matchup, Stephen Pearl is going to have his team ready to guard Hubbard and put a defensive stopper on him, because if they do that, I don't think Mississippi State has enough guys around them. But Auburn has the worst defense in the entire SEC, and then one of the better offenses in the conference. And for Mississippi State, they're 15th in the SEC in both adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. So I think if it was a different team, Auburn could be punished. But as long as they can slow down Josh Hubbard, I do believe Auburn has enough to win this game. I think Keyshawn Hall and Tahad Pettiford both have big games in this one, and they help the Tigers advance to the next round. Up next is Ole Miss taking on the Texas Longhorns, and both of these teams have been struggling going into postseason play. Ole Miss has lost 12 of their last 13 games, and then for Texas, they've lost 4 of their last 5. So both teams really needing to get a win to get back on the right track. And for Texas specifically, I believe they're in the field, but I wouldn't mess around and would definitely get one, maybe a couple wins in the SEC tournament just to solidify your spot in March Madness. But in this matchup previously, it was Texas able to get an 11-point win at home over Mississippi. Texas dominated for the majority of the game, with Ole Miss coming back at the end, but then Texas was able to take it away and end up getting a double-digit victory over the Rebels. And for the Longhorns, I think their size in the front court is going to be big in this matchup. Matas Vokatitis absolutely dominated in the first matchup against Ole Miss, and even though Ole Miss has a guy like Malik Dia down there, I think the size with Matas Vokatitis, Dalen Swain, and even a guy like Camden Heide is going to give Ole Miss some trouble there. And then for the Longhorns, what they need to do is they just have to limit their turnovers. As long as they don't have too many turnovers, I truly believe this Texas team is going to run away with this one, and it might not be even close. I think Texas has a lot of talent, and the way that they ended their season isn't necessarily reflective of what this team truly is. So I got the Longhorns winning this one and advancing over Ole Miss. And in our final matchup of the first round, we have Oklahoma as the 11 seed taking on South Carolina, and Oklahoma is actually actually one of the hottest teams in the SEC right now, finishing with 4 straight wins to end conference play and play their way into the bubble. I still think they're on the outside looking in at the NCAA tournament right now, but rattling off a couple of wins in the SEC tournament could play themselves into March Madness, and they're going up against the South Carolina team that's just 4-14 in conference play. However, they did win their last conference matchup against Ole Miss heading into postseason, so both teams coming off of wins. And in their one and only matchup this season, South Carolina actually got the win at home over Oklahoma, 85-76, and Michi Johnson definitely was great in that game, scoring 20 points against the Sooners. But with the way that Oklahoma's playing right now, I really like this team. And if you look at their lineup, they have a lot of talent. Xavier Brown and Nigel Pack are an underrated backcourt in the SEC to me. And then you have Tay Davis and Darion Reed, both capable wings and forwards there for the Sooners. They have one of the better offenses, actually. They're 22nd in offensive efficiency, according to KenPom. So as long as their defense can hold up, I think OU can go on a run in the SEC tournament. So I definitely have them beating South Carolina in this one and advancing. Next, in our first matchup of the second round, we have Kentucky taking on Missouri. And Missouri at one point looked like one of the hotter teams in the country out of the SEC, but now they've dropped their last 2 games to end conference play against Oklahoma and Arkansas. And then you have Kentucky, who lost to Texas A&M and Florida to end conference play. So both of these teams coming off of back-to-back losses, and in their previous matchup, they only played one time this season. Missouri went on the road to Rupp Arena and beat Kentucky 73-68. And for this Missouri team, it's really Mark Mitchell and T.O. Barrett who are the 2 main guys for this team, but they also have a lot of size there for Mizzou. Mark Mitchell, 6'9", but he starts at the 3 spot right now with Trent Pierce, who's 6'10", and then Sean Phillips, who's a 7-footer. And then they also bring in Trent Burns off the bench, who is 7'5". So this team has a lot of size all across this lineup, but their Achilles heel is their turnovers. They're one of the worst teams in the country when it comes to turning the ball over, actually the worst in SEC. And so one thing I think Kentucky can capitalize on is forcing those turnovers and getting out in transition against this team. I think Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen would be huge on the defensive end from the guards for the Wildcats, and I have enough trust in Malachi Moreno and Mohamed Diabate to lock it down on the interior against these bigs. And I think as long as they limit Mark Mitchell and really focus in on him, then Kentucky is going to be able to get the win in this one. So I do like Mark Pope and the Wildcats, but I think it's going to be a close one, and it might be the best matchup in the second round. But give me Kentucky to advance to the quarterfinals. Next, we have Auburn taking on Tennessee, and just like the last one, I think Auburn needs this one to even have a shot of getting into the NCAA tournament. But in this matchup, I think I prefer Tennessee. We know with Auburn, they have their dynamic duo of Tahad Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall, but Tennessee is one of the best defenses, not only in the SEC, but in the entire country. In the interior, you got Felix Akpara and Jalen Carey, and then also JP Estrella off the bench. And then on the wings, you have a guy like Nate Ament who can definitely play solid defense with his length that he has, and then Bishop Boswell at the guard position. Also, I trust Jacoby Gillespie more than Tahad Pettiford, which if you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, I would have said otherwise, but Jacoby Gillespie just has been so steady for this Tennessee Volunteer team that I think he would be able to rein them in on the offensive end and get this team moving in the right direction. In their previous game, it was Tennessee getting the win by 8 points over Auburn. Nate Ament had a really good game in that one, scored 22 against the Tigers, and they limited Keyshawn Hall and Tahad Pettiford for just 32 combined points. If they can keep both of those guys under 40 combined, I think Tennessee has this one. So I'm picking the Volunteers to win and advance to the next round. Now we have Texas going up against the 7-seeded Georgia Bulldogs, and Georgia, there for a little bit, looked like they were heading in the wrong direction after their hot start to the year where they started 13-1, but now winners of their last 3, and they were against South Carolina, Mississippi State, and a huge win against against Alabama. And we have Texas, who I have predicted just to have beaten Ole Miss, but coming into the tournament have lost 4 of their last 5. However, I do like this Texas team in this matchup. Dalen Swain, Matas Vokatitis, I think would have huge games against this Georgia defense, who is not necessarily the best. Then you also have a guy like Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark in the backcourt, which I think matches up pretty well against Blue Kane and Jeremiah Wilkinson from the Bulldogs. Kanan Catchings is an X factor for Georgia. I think if he gets hot from the outside, that could be something that hurts Texas, but I do think Dalen Swain would be able to lock him up if needed. And these teams have matched up twice in the regular season, and both time the home team were able to get the win, with Georgia winning by 11 and Texas winning by 20. But if Texas is able to turn Georgia over and limit their own turnovers, I do like Texas in this matchup. So I have the Longhorns beating Georgia, and with this win, I think it firmly solidifies their spot in the NCAA tournament. And in our final matchup of the second round, we have OU taking on the 6-seeded Texas A&M Aggies, and Texas A&M started off hot in SEC play, winning 7 of their first 8 games, but then they went on a 4-game losing streak, and I thought that might be it for Bucky McMillan in his first season with Texas A&M, but then they have turned it around, have won 4 of their last 6, including their last 2 heading into postseason play. And we all know Bucky ball is a unique style of basketball, and it's one that they get after you from the opening tip. But the one thing that I think would give them issues is the experience that these Oklahoma guards have in Xavier Brown and Nigel Pack. I believe that they'd be able to handle the pressure well and limit their turnovers here in the SEC tournament. But in their previous 2 matchups, it was Texas A&M getting the win in both of them. They were both really close games, but A&M was the more aggressive team and were able to get to the free throw line a lot more as well. So OU's going to have to limit their free throw opportunities that they give Texas A&M, and then also focus on not turning the ball over. But I do think with the way that Oklahoma is playing right now and the confidence that these guards have, they will be able to take care of it and lead the Sooners to their second win in 2 days in the SEC tournament. But in our first matchup of the quarterfinals in the SEC tournament, we have the number 1 seed Florida Gators taking on the Kentucky Wildcats, and we actually just saw this game in the regular season finale for both of these teams in conference play, and it was Florida getting the win 84-77 over the Kentucky Wildcats at Rupp Arena. And that final score seems a lot closer than this game was. Florida absolutely dominated Kentucky on the interior, and this front court for the Florida Gators, we knew it was going to be good, but it has been even better than expected. Thomas Houck has been awesome all season long, but then Ruben Chinyulu and Alex Condon, we knew they were good. They've gotten even better for the Florida Gators, and with that backcourt of Xavier Lee, Boogie Flan getting better game by game, and then role players like Isaiah Brown and Urban Clavsar just getting better with each and every game, this team just looks like they are truly on another level right now. And I know it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season, but with what Florida has been doing, and with them being currently on an 11-game win streak, I think that continues here, and I just don't think that Kentucky matches up well with Florida at all. But honestly, right now, I don't know who does, so I have the Gators winning and advancing to the semifinals. And next, we have Tennessee taking on Vanderbilt, which is another game we just saw in the regular season finale for the SEC, and in that one, it was Vanderbilt able to go on the road and beat Tennessee, but we actually already saw that game prior as well, and Tennessee was able to go to Vanderbilt and get the win. Both teams have won by 4 points, so right now, this season series is tied, and this could be the best matchup of the entire tournament. With Vanderbilt, you have Tyler Tanner, who has been awesome all season long and is truly the floor general for that Vanderbilt team and the guy that gets everything going. But then Duke Miles, Tyler Nickel, and Devin McLaughlin are all huge pieces for this team, and I think they're going to have big games in order for them to get another win over Tennessee. The thing that the Volunteers have, though, is obviously they're better on the defensive end, but they also have a lot more size than Vanderbilt, who is one of the smaller Power 5 teams in the country. with Tennessee, you got Felix Okpara and Jalen Carey down low. Jalen Carey facing his former team for the third time if this matchup were to happen. But then obviously Jacoby Gillespie. And I'm hoping that Nate Ament is back for this one, because that is going to hurt if he is not available for this game against Vanderbilt. But I think Tennessee still has enough to win even without him. So I'm going with the Volunteers to win this one and advance to the semifinals. Next, we have Texas taking on Alabama, and Alabama has been one of the hotter teams in the country as well out of the SEC. They've won 9 of their last 10, with that only loss coming on the road to Georgia. But in their last game of the regular season, they were able to beat Auburn in a convincing fashion. Obviously, you have LeBaron Philon, who I think right now is playing like one of the best point guards in the entire country, although he was just left off of the award list for the best point guard in the country. So I do think that's going to give him some extra motivation heading into the postseason. But then with the way that Alabama plays, I think a team like Texas could run into some issues with it, especially if this Crimson Tide team gets hot. Although we did see this matchup earlier in the season, and it was Texas going to Alabama and getting a 4-point victory over the Crimson Tide, and the Longhorns were able to put up 92 points in that one. But I just think over the last 10 games, Alabama is playing a lot better than they have maybe the entire season, and are one of my sneaky teams that I think could make a deep run in March, not only with the way they play just being vastly different than everyone else, but this team truly is looking better on the defensive end as well, as they've been limiting opponents to less and less points, it seems like, as the season has gone on. The big thing though that does scare me is Dalen Swain and Matas Vokatitis for the Texas Longhorns. I think Dalen Swain, with his skill set, might be able to carve up this Alabama defense and get to the rim at will. And then for Matas Vokatitis, I just don't know about Alabama's front court defense, but the ability for the Alabama guards to just go out and score in bunches, especially with the way that Latrell Wrightsell has been playing as well, alongside LeBaron Philon and Aiden Holloway. I just can't be picking against the Crimson Tide right now in this matchup, so I have Alabama advancing to the next round. And in our last game of the quarterfinals, it's Oklahoma playing their third game in 3 straight days up against the number 3 seed in the SEC in the Arkansas Razorbacks. And this Arkansas team, I truly believe, has all the talent in the world, with a guy like Darius Acuff leading your backcourt. He has absolutely dominated in his freshman season with the Razorbacks. And then you obviously still have a guy like Malik Thomas around him. Trevin Brazile keeps getting better and better, and I think he's going to be a big part of Arkansas's postseason run in the SEC tournament, but also in March Madness as well. And going up against an Oklahoma team that they've already beat on the road, they won 83-79 in Norman, and Darius Acuff had his way in that one, finishing with a double-double with 21 points and 10 assists. I think the way that Darius Acuff is playing right now, he's not going to let this Arkansas team lose in this matchup, and I just believe Arkansas has the better backcourt with Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas. My biggest question mark right now for the Razorbacks is their depth, just without having Carter Knox and then not having that many guys that they can go to. But you also have a guy like Billy Richmond, who keeps trending in the right direction throughout the season and looks like he's getting more and more confident on the offensive end. So I really like Arkansas in this matchup over Oklahoma and think they'll get it done and advance to the semifinals. And in our first matchup of the semifinals, it's the Florida Gators taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. And I know Tennessee has one of the best defenses in the entire country, and they're also known for their front court defense with Felix Okpara and Jalen Carey. But going up against this Florida team is a different type of test for Tennessee, and in their one and only matchup this season, Florida absolutely dominated, and it was Ruben Chinyelu, Alex Condon, and Thomas Houck who had their way. But Boogie Flan actually had one of his best games with the Gators when he scored 23 points against Tennessee in this one. They also had 6 different guys get in the double figures in scoring against the Volunteers, and when you're able to put up 91 on a defense like Tennessee, I just don't know if the Volunteers have what it takes to stop them. They're not only going to have to be able to slow them down, but also be able to score with the way that Florida has been scoring as of late. And honestly, with the way that this Florida backcourt has been playing, I actually think I like them a bit more than what Tennessee has. Jacoby Gillespie is by far the best guard in this game, but when it comes to those secondary options for Tennessee, like a Bishop Boswell or an Amari Evans, I think the combination of Xavier Lee, Boogie Flan, and even an Urban Klazar, who has been shooting the lights out of it right now, is just even better and someone that I trust more when it comes to postseason play. So I'm going with Florida once again to get the win and advance to the championship. And then in our other semifinal matchup, it's the matchup I think everyone wants to see, and that's Alabama going up against Arkansas, because the last time that we saw this in their one and only game in the regular season, it was one of the best games in all of college basketball this year. Alabama won 117 to 115 in double overtime at home. And Darius Acuff, though, he went off for 49 points in this one and had an elite battle against LeBaron Philon, who finished with 35 points himself. And if they played this game again, I truly think it would be another great one. And I already mentioned my biggest concern with a team like Arkansas. I think they have all the talent in the world, but the depth still scares me. But it would only be their second game in 2 days. And the reason I think Arkansas lost that first one, honestly, was the fact that they got into foul trouble and they had to bring in 2 guys in double overtime that had played 0 minutes all game long, and it really hurt them at the end. But then obviously with a team like Alabama, the volatility is so high. I could see the Crimson Tide shooting the ball 40% from 3 and end up blowing out Arkansas, but they could also have a dud, shoot it below 30%, and Arkansas runs away with it. So this game is one of the games that could go either way, but if they got the rematch and it was on a neutral court, I'm going with Darius Acuff and the Arkansas Razorbacks to get the win. I think it would be by a narrow margin, but I do trust what Acuff and this Arkansas team has been doing as of late, so I have the Razorbacks moving on to the finals. But in the SEC championship game, it is the Arkansas Razorbacks going up against the Florida Gators, and we saw this game just a few weeks ago, and it was Florida able to get the win 111 to 77, and this Arkansas team was able to do nothing to stop the Florida Gators front court. They got contributions from just about everywhere on the team, with 7 different guys scoring in double figures for Florida. And with the way Florida's three-point shooting has been trending as of late, if you remember, maybe just a month ago, they were under 30% on the season as a team, but now shot 36% in the month of February from deep as a team, and it's continuing to go upward. And honestly, Florida dominated that game from start to finish, and I think this one would be a bit more competitive with it being on a neutral site. And even though I love Darius Acuff, think he'd be the best guard in this matchup, and I think Arkansas has a good front court of their own, Florida right now just looks too dominant, and I'm not sure anyone in the SEC can stop them. So I have to pick the Florida Gators to win this one and once again be SEC champions. But that wraps it up for this one. Let me know your thoughts on my SEC tournament predictions in the comments down below, and let me know who you would have winning it all if it's not Florida. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and all your support, and I'll see you in the next one.